What is up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I do want to revisit a pretty old rally raid vehicle in Motorfest. Now, I would say a lot of players most likely do not even have this truck or might not even know what it is. Funnily enough, I was going to do a video on this thing back in the crew too, but I was like, you know what? Let's just wait until like Motorfest does come out and I'll revisit this thing then to of course see how this truck really is going to be in that game. If you do want the regular HX, though, you can buy it in the game. I think it's like $800,000 or something like that. But crazily enough, though, this Vault Enforcer unit is going to be one of the oldest Rally Raid vehicles in this game. And also, technically, in some way, probably the oldest Summit vehicle for that matter. Pretty much right behind the Bugatti Divo Magma Edition. Crazily enough, I also did one of my first videos on this truck almost 2 years ago. It really is insane how fast time goes, but you will then see, yes, this thing does have like sirens on the top of it, and of course you also see like the sirens on the front. I actually was using this vehicle recently in one of the grand races, and surprisingly I would say most players are probably like, what in the world is that thing? Is that an HX with like sirens on it? Wait, what? This thing wait, an enforcer unit. What is that thing? So I would say a lot of players were most likely wondering what this thing actually was. And I was kind of laughing to myself like, is it really going to be that old? It does turn out they never brought this vehicle back into this game either. I would also be very surprised if they ever bring it back into Motorfest. Keep in mind, this thing was a Summit vehicle back around 2 years ago in the crew too. And not only that, though, it was also going to be when it was top 3,000 to get it. So I do remember this thing being pretty dang hard to get back then, but the top speed on this truck is going to be surprisingly good. But one thing I did notice about the Rally Raid vehicles in Motorfest is going to come down to the fact that many of the vehicles are changed compared to the Crew 2 before. We do know many of the trucks back then did around like 180 miles an hour, which right now in this game is probably going to be a very small select few that can even get close to that number. Oh my goodness, a farm. Whoa. So I would say like getting around 170 miles an hour in one of these trucks is probably like a big accomplishment. One thing I would admit though is I am planning to do a video on the Toyota Tacoma. Right now that is probably going to be one of the fastest rally raid vehicles in this game. Of course, if you are in PvP, you most likely notice basically everybody running the Z4. And of course, I was jumping into the Hummer HX Enforcer unit, which by the way, surprisingly enough, I was basically beating everybody with this thing. I don't know if it's going to be because it's like overpowered or like maybe it's just because it might handle speed or like, carry speed a bit better. I really don't know, which I will do more testing on that stuff, but the top speed of the Hummer HX Enforcer unit is going to be fairly decent. This thing hits around 166 miles an hour, which by the way is pretty dang quick. At least for this class, when I was noticing some of the cars barely hitting 150, and of course some of them can barely hold like 158 miles an hour. One thing I also think that might end up throwing some players off is probably going to come down to the fact that you randomly hear a Hummer with sirens on it. We do know a lot of the Enforcer vehicles are obviously not in Motorfest, and I would almost guess we are most likely not going to see that many in this game either. I would probably say the reason for that is going to come down to certain manufacturers being in here, so we are most likely not going to see many, I guess, cop type of vehicles, even though technically it's like a Volt Hunter vehicle where you go after people who rob Volts, which is kind of like an enforcer. Where am I going with this? But regardless, though, the testing of the Hummer here, I would say, guys, if you do have this vehicle, which if I did have to guess, I would say most players probably do not have this thing. I would definitely recommend trying this thing out, though, because it is really fun to use. I would also say if you are a PvP player, try this truck out if you have it. Even the regular HX, for that matter, is still going to be insanely good. And I have been noticing more players running that truck if they do have it. Luckily, in this game, I do believe you can legit just buy the regular HX. Which, if you are wondering, by the way, the biggest differences with that truck and this one is going to come down to the sirens, the front bumper on it, and also, the lights. Besides that, though, it's most likely going to be the exact same vehicle. I just feel like the Enforcer unit's going to be really cool because it's so dang rare, and you most likely never really see this thing anywhere. Now, if we are talking about handling and, like, overall speed, how does it do? Well, I would probably say for the most part, you're probably going to be pretty dang surprised with this truck's handling. I also have a build on this thing I will show at the end of the video if you do have it and you want to test it out. I would most likely say you could probably use this truck in basically anything. One thing I really can't fathom though is the fact that this truck is going to be almost 2 years old, or I guess at this point it probably is going to be 2 years old, which really is insane to me. how old some of the vehicles in this game are. The fact that they never added this truck back into the Crew 2 makes me wonder if it will ever be in Motorfest. Now, you know, the first thing I had to do is immediately go up another off-road area here and basically fly up a mountain. Now, my initial thoughts on this truck, though, is, again, guys, if you have this thing, try this thing out. If you do not, I would recommend trying out the regular HX from the Crew 2. That would most likely be the exact same truck for that matter. The only difference, though, is, of course, this one is going to be very special. Anybody you guys see driving the Enforcer Unit HX around, I would definitely be like, wow, that person is probably going to be an OG in this game. It's probably insane because they most likely were playing the game almost since it did come out. It really is crazy how most of the early Summit vehicles in this game are probably that rare. Even though the Bugatti Magma Edition came out like 52 times now. Who knows, maybe we might end up seeing the Enforcer unit once again in the future. Let me know what you guys think about this truck in the comments below. And also, by the way, guys, do let me know if you actually have this truck, by the way. I would say the number of people that most likely have this thing is insanely low.